All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, let's talk about mining, but let's talk about mining in smaller scales. And actually, let's not talk about mining at all. Let's talk how to get paid to shower. Because who would like to be get paid to shower? Yeah, yeah. I can, I can tell you, I'm doing this now since like 2 years, and somehow the time that we shower goes up and up and up. So, yeah, you will understand after this talk why. All right, a little bit about me. Like we heard, people actually know me mostly about because my Twitter username, Schnitzel, which is a long history. I'm going to tell you outside if you want to know. I'm originally from Switzerland, and I live in the US now. I do software by day. That's my trade. That's my fiat job. I'm doing software stuff. But I'm really intrigued by hardware, so that's why I started mining. So that's why I say I do hardware by night. I fell into the Bitcoin rabbit hole quite early in 2013, and then into the mining rabbit hole in 2021 because I have a garage that I work in, and in Virginia where I live, it's roughly same like in northern Switzerland. So it was cold, and I was like, we should mine. So that's what I started with. In 2021, I found an Antminer S3, which is like 200 megahash. It's not a lot on Facebook, and I tried to play with it because I had a small solar panel that I thought, okay, I wanna use the solar panel with the miner. I didn't get anywhere honestly because it doesn't get warm at all, so that didn't work. But then I bought some S9s. And I learned about the sound because it's really loud. So I added like another fan. You see on top there's a squirrel fan up there. I tried different power supplies, and unfortunately, actually, the lower miner is no longer with us anymore because don't try to make trains like I did. It doesn't work. The second miner there, way overheated, and yeah, it's now an exhibition piece in my house. But that's how you learn. That's how you play around with it. So yeah. Then in 2022, my wife and I we have an Airstream, and we travel all over the US. And one of the interesting things is you pay for propane a lot, like because you heat these things with propane. And funny enough, at these RV parking lots, on these RV lots, you don't pay for the electricity. You just pay a fixed fee per day, and it doesn't really matter on how much energy you use. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna mine for free. So you see, this is a similar system again. It's the squirrel fan with the miner, and I put it outside because it was still kind of loud. And I basically piped the hot air into the Airstream, and it worked really well. Like I basically did not spend any propane anymore. Only like during the night when it was really cold, the propane kicked in a little bit. But that was really like the beginning of actually starting to use heat from mining, and not so much about the mining itself. But yeah, it was quite an adventurous thing to do that. Then I started to look into more because winter was over and summer came. And I didn't need my Airstream anymore. I didn't need to heat it anymore. So I was looking into how else could I use my S9s that I have lying around. How else could I use them? And I ended up in heating water. So without going too much into detail, but basically that was the very first one that I used immersion. I'm going to explain you later how immersion exactly works, but that was the very first version of the now house heater. At that point, I was only able to heat water. So that's that. Then I went further. I was like, I not only want to use heat water, I want to use my house again because it became winter again and the house gets cold. So I basically upgraded the whole system to quite a more complex system to now be able to not only heat the water, but also the house. And in the meantime, we bought a hot tub. And then I was also able to heat the hot tub. So this is the system as it has been running for more than a year to basically heat the house completely from mining only. And that's where the whole idea came from, to get paid to shower, where I could actually, because I had a lot of sensors and stuff, I could tell exactly how many sats that each shower generated, because the whole control system, knows how much was mined during showering. And now, as of today, I'm working on the version 3, which is very similar, but uses a little bit more off-the-shelf products, because if you actually look before, yes, this is an ice cooler, or like a drinks cooler in the middle, so it was very steampunky. And now I'm starting to use a bit off-the-shelf products that exist for mining specifically. But yeah, you see there's still a lot of wires and cables coming out. But that's what I'm working on. So I'm working on a system that we could sell to people to send them at home to install themselves in their houses to also get paid to shower. But you could basically heat anything. So my system right now at home heats water, the house, and the hot tub. And for the next bull run, there's also a radiator there because as soon as the price goes up, you can actually mine for profit. And so I'm going to have a radiator that will just dissipate the heat when everything else is already running. But it's becoming winter, so I actually don't expect the radiator to be used a lot. All right, so why actually heat capture? So what we see here is a kettle. Probably all of you have one of these at home. And if you use 1 kilowatt hour of electricity, this will create 1 kilowatt hour, or in heat terms, 3,600 kilojoules of heat. Now a question to the audience. If you use 1 kilowatt electricity in a miner, how much heat does this generate? Who thinks less? Okay, who thinks more? Who thinks exactly the same? Okay, yeah, you're good. I've done this before and everybody said, oh, it's less. No, it's exactly the same. So basically, your miner is a water kettle. 100% of the electricity that you put into the miner comes out as heat. There is no single piece of energy that somehow ends up in Bitcoin as itself. The Bitcoin generates the heat. So the calculation of the miner itself is generating the heat of the system. And that's what we're using. Now, the problem is, though, you see on the right side, there's these fans on it. And you can't shower in the fans, or you can't pour the water into the miner, because I tried, doesn't work. So, yeah, we need to find a better way. So we do this with so-called immersion cooling, meaning you submerge the miners in a so-called dielectrical oil. This is specific oil built for computer, server, GPU cooling that is non-electrical conducting, meaning it does not conduct or it does not destroy the miner when you put it in it. I have to say, though, the first experience of having the miner there and pouring a liquid over it is quite the experience. But it works. So what you do then is you pump the oil to a heat exchanger. You can use regular pumps. The oil has like the same viscosity as water, so you don't need anything special. And then you need a heat exchanger, because in the end you want hot water, but you don't want the oil and the water to mix together. Because again, if you want to shower, you don't want to shower in oil. I tried, again, it's now fun. So you have these heat exchangers in the middle. These are so-called plate heat exchanger, and they're super common. Pretty much every car today has one of these inside. So it's a very standard system. You basically have 4 holes. 2 of them, each 2 are connected. So you put the hot oil in, the oil comes out on one of them, you put the cold water in, and hot water comes out with the other one. So what I do, I use my hot water tank that I already have. They all have a flush valve at the bottom. I take the water out of there, have another pump, also run it through the heat exchanger, and basically wait until the water inside the heat exchanger is hot. That's how you heat your water, and that's how you get paid to shower. That's like the super simplest way to do it. So let's look at some data. Usually miners today have 3,000 or more watts. So we're talking about a lot. A regular water heater, an electric water heater, has 3,000 watts. So your miner has exactly the same. There are even miners with 7 or 8 or 9,000. Then you can, of course, put multiple in them. And yeah, you can add multiple miners. So you can start with 1, or you can have 700. Most house heaters probably need 1 to maybe 3 miners, depending on how big your house is, how much water you want to heat up. And the really important part is the variability. So even though your miner has 3,000 watts, you can start at 500. And you can go up to 3,000 in 100-watt increments. That opens a lot of new possibilities, specifically if we have solar panels, things like that. So we're going to talk about this a little later. And then temperatures, you can get easily to 75 degrees Celsius. Some of the mining companies, as we just learned today, are actually working at 80 degrees Celsius. So that's plenty enough for hot water, showering, hot tub, things like that. People always ask me if it's also enough to actually cook, and just with that system, you will not get the water to 100 degrees. So if you want to cook your pasta in there, it's going to take a long time. But of course, you can have like two-phase systems with heat exchangers and heat pumps where that will be possible, but yeah, just by itself. And then the last one important thing is the duty cycle. The miner doesn't care if it runs for 1 second, for 1 hour, or for a whole year. And you can also stop it at any second, and you will not lose any hash or Bitcoin. So because every single job that the pool sends to a miner is done within a couple of milliseconds. So if you shut off the miner because, I don't know, your water is heated, and you turn it on again an hour later, there's nothing that you lost in between. You would just get paid while the miner is running. And that's very different to a regular computer. Like, let's say you would use a computer and you render videos, and you stop in the middle of the video rendering, you have to start at the beginning again. With Bitcoin mining, that's not the case at all. So that's really nice. Questions at the end? Yeah? Okay, thank you. All right, so this is how my system looks like. So you see it's a little bit more complex. And we can shortly look at how it works. So we have here in the middle, we have the miners. We have the pump that we saw before. And now instead of sending it directly over here to the water heater, we actually have multiple valves. Where a computer system or a control system decides which of the system actually needs heat. So my system can either heat the water that we already saw before, works exactly the same. It can also heat the hot tub that sits in the yard. It can also heat my whole house, which the heat exchanger is actually part of the existing system. So I didn't have to change much of my existing system. Or you have the outside radiator. But that, of course, depends on how your house, how your situation is. There's a lot of different things, how you can heat a house. I myself have radiators, but there's floor heating, there's wall heating, there is forced air, there's all kind of different things. But you can connect your miners to all of them. Because in the end, it's hot water, and you can convert hot water into hot air, no problem at all. So pretty much anything is possible. Now you say, but what about the high energy costs? That's the question I get in Europe all the single time. Because yes, the electricity cost plays a factor in all of this. And if you have very cheap energy, it's obviously easier to heat your house and make a profit from it. While if you pay a lot for energy, like we have in Europe, or for example in California, in the US, or in other places in the world, the calculation becomes a little bit more complex, but I'm going to try to convince you that it's possible, even in Switzerland with 30 cents kilowatt costs. So first of all, a lot of people only looking at the bad times. Yes, mining is unprofitable right now at 30 kilowatt per hour. Today, if you mine with, this is one S19, like 100 terahash, you will make $6.3 a day, which is great. But you will pay $21 for the energy. So that means you lose $15 every single day. That's today, that's in a time of a bear market, that's in a time where there's a lot of hash rate going up. But if you look back, like in October last year, you made $20 a day of mining. So if you average this out over multiple times, you become roughly like you will be in net zero. And who says you have to sell the Bitcoin that you mine today, that you also have to sell it today? Like you can just hodl it, and if you believe that the price will go up, actually spending electricity today is not a bad thing if it converts it into Bitcoin. So that's the first thing. You will always have to look at it at the long term and not just in a single day. The next thing is, what are the alternatives? Today, specifically in Switzerland, we have a lot of oil and gas. So now we want to change this. What you can do is you can buy an air heat pump, costs you easily $30,000 or more. Or you maybe say, I want to have a geothermal heat pump, costs you $45,000 or more. Or you buy a system like with mining, costs you $15,000. That's it. So do this and buy Bitcoin with the other $15,000 that you would have spent for the air heat pump. And yeah, you maybe have solved you have generational wealth generated. The next one, if you have solar power, or if you have solar powers on top of your roof, in the past, there was a lot of incentives to buy solar panels and sell the energy back to the grid. The problem is we all started doing this, and the grid is actually not interested in your solar power anymore. They actually have a problem now. If the sun shines a lot, and everybody of us sells energy back to the grid, they have way too much. And today, at least in Switzerland, you get paid 13 cents or Rappen per kilowatt hour. But if you look over the last years, this is going down. It's going down fast. So in the future, I think, or I believe, actually selling back solar panel to the grid, specifically in a day where it's very sunny, you will get not a lot. And of course, the miners can generate higher yields. So you can just either mine for nothing, so for profit, with like a radiator, or another thing is like in a water heater. Usually we say you need to heat the water heater to 70 degrees inside the water tank to kill all the bacteria. But nobody prevents you to heat it to 90 degrees, if you can. So there's even possibilities that like you just put another water tank next to your existing water tank, and if it's a sunny day and your solar panels generate more heat or energy, you generate heat with them, and so you can store the energy in water instead of electrical batteries, because electrical batteries are very expensive, and another water tank is very cheap. So there's a possibility to store additional energy that otherwise you maybe don't use, or you need to sell back to the grid for free or almost for free. You can just mine with them and make a much higher profit, and of course, believing that the price will go up in the future. And the next one is just look at it as your DCA. In my system, through the winter, I definitely pay more for the electricity than otherwise I would have paid with an oil heater. But yeah, for me, I'm just buying Bitcoin with heating our house, just every single day. And the most important thing, this Bitcoin are KYC free. And today, that's pretty much the only way that I know that you can purely get KYC free sats at home or by yourself. Because every other way, the dear government figured out a way how to track us. But if you mine for Bitcoin, nobody will know that you own these Bitcoin. Because the Bitcoin are generated directly from the Coinbase. So the pool will be the only one, and there are KYC-free pools. So that's a way for you to really, truly have KYC, brand new Bitcoin that have never been transacted before. All right. So, as I said, it's not only possible, it's happening today. So these are actually projects in Europe today. There are people that are doing this. Of course, it's a lot of playing around. We see on the very left side, there's somebody that uses an S9 that is in oil. You can't really see it there, but this is in oil. On in the middle, incubating eggs. Like you just put the S9 next to it. Luckily, the chickens, when they're in the eggs, they don't care about the noise. So you don't even need to do any immersion. So you just put them there, and they will heat up. And on the very right side, quite a cool system already that actually uses a central water heating system is now heated through miners. Now, these are all self-made. These are all take some time for actually understanding on how they work. So there's also companies out there that are doing this already, and they're working on it. So my own Nakamoto Heating Solutions, we're doing this. It's mostly in the US right now, because that's where I live. We do everything open source. So if you want to learn, or if you want to build it yourself, we have parts lists, we have schemas, we have documentation and videos on how to build this yourselves. And we're working on kits ourselves. But we also have companies here that are today here. One of them is Riot. They're working on plug-and-play solutions. They're Switzerland-based. So they're working on doing what you just saw, all for you, without you ever needing to touch a wrench or learning how to pour oil over miners or anything like that. So there's other companies like TerraHash in Germany. They're doing a more industrial heating. So if you have a really big system, let's say you're the owner of a hospital, talk to them, because they can help you as well. And I can tell you hospitals use a lot of hot water. So there's huge opportunities there. And then we also have space heaters. So these are heaters that you just can plug in into the wall, and they heat a room. 21 Energy in Austria is doing this. You can buy them today. You can go online, you can buy them. You can plug in the wall, and you have a room heated by miners. And then if you want to build it yourself, there's another company called DCX in Poland. they do immersion solutions, so they can do from small scale to really big scale. They can help you as well. So there is stuff out there, but I have to say we're very, very, very early. But this is very great. This is the perfect day to start, because miner prices today are very low. They're as low as we almost have never seen them. So like a miner that used to be $15,000 costs you now $800-900. And a lot of people believe that we're going to go back up to these prices. So if you are thinking about this, talk to me or talk to one of them, because now is the time to start. I don't think that we're going to buy these miners for that cheap anymore in the future. And with that, that's it. Are there any questions? Do we have a microphone? Oh, yeah, take it.
Does it now? Okay. So, a more funnier physics question. I love physics, so that's probably my question. But do you know how many like miners we would need to heat all this, like the conference, this whole place, and how many, like generally, how many miners do you need to heat like a house or like a car, for example?
Yeah. So the first question I don't know, because I don't know how much energy the house uses or the building uses. But usually you can say like one miner is around 3,000 watts. And the regular house in Switzerland needs between 7 to 10,000 watts for heating power. So if you want to do this, you probably end up, depends also how big of a miner you're using, because some miners, they only have 3,000, others have 7,000. But I would say between 2 to 4 miners is plenty. But of course, you can have more. Specifically, if you predict, let's say that your miners generate a lot of profit, you can just have radiators outside or dry coolers. And if you have too much heat, you can just vent it outside. So it's really depending on how much you want to pay up front, how much you believe that's going to happen. But you don't need 100 miners, like it's around a couple.
Is this on? Yes.
Thanks for the presentation. My question is on the economic side. Have you ever had a look how much you could save actually on energy costs if you run some miners with some kind of conservative assumptions?
It very highly depends on each situation, because it depends on your energy cost. It depends on if you have free energy, like solar panels. Then it depends on how much your house already uses, what the cost is that you return back. So there's no single question, but I do believe it is going to be possible to do this economically, even in Europe. But if you want, we can sit together, or you can talk to some of these other people here, and they will be able to help you to calculate roughly what's going to happen. The biggest unknown, though, is the Bitcoin price. So if base there, you get from you lose everything that you have to you're going to be a millionaire in a couple of years. Like it's just so hard to say. But we can say, okay, if we do like a couple of calculations, we can do that specifically for your house.
Okay, we have 1 minute, 2 questions. So make the questions and the answers even quicker, and we'll get both in.
Thank you. Super inspiring talk. How long is like a miner economically viable? Let's say I buy a miner, I set up the system. Like, how many years of useful energy to sats conversion can I get?
Depends on your energy cost.
Okay.
So in my case,
like
in the US, for example, by the way, give him he had a question during the time. So
I'm sorry.
But we can. So if you already heat with electricity, any miner, even the oldest one, is going to be profitable. So the question is more, what's your alternative and how much does it cost? But these, like my S3 that I had at the very beginning, this is like 10 years old. And I can put it in oil and generate sats. It's not a lot. So it really depends on, but what we're seeing today is that the price or the speed that new miners with new hashes are coming out is slowing down. So there used to be a time that new miners came out and they doubled the hash rate every single time. Today, the newest miners that come out, they maybe do 20, 30% more. So I believe the miners that you buy today will be easily usable for 10 years. No problem at all.
Yes, okay. So my question is, I have an S9 running just for fun in my guest house, and the temperature just goes very high sometimes, and I don't know if it's okay to just switch it off. And my thought was if you just put a thermometer on it and say, okay, now we reached 20 degrees, shut off the miner, and then just plug it out of the switch or turn it off. Is that how you do it, or does it damage the miner?
No, so that's what I do. I have a whole control system. It's connected to a home assistant. That's an open source house automation system that measures the temperature of the water or the house and then tells the miner to turn on and off. There's APIs, there's connections that you can all connect together. So that's probably the best way, because yes, if you just let the miner run, yes, they have internal temperature sensors. They will shut off, but don't depend on them. So if you just run your miner in a room and it's not properly ventilated, it might die, or it might catch on fire. So be careful. If you just plug it out, yes, you don't lose. You just to stop mining at that point, but you're not losing like the last hour or something. No.
All right, guys, thank you. I'm sorry we run out of time there. But, Michael, if I can ask you, would you take questions from the guys just in the networking room?
I'm going to be out there.
In the networking room.
Me.
So it's 2 rooms down past the speaker room, because this is a huge topic. Ladies and gentlemen, Ad Schnitzel, please give him a round of applause.